I was 31 when it happened. I'd been there a few times before, always with friends, always just for a night or two. But that summer, I wanted something quieter, something longer. I had 2 weeks off, and for once, I didn't want airports or phone screens or even conversations. I just wanted stillness. 5 days out there by myself, no reception, no cars humming down the road nearby, just the woods and me. I wasn't a survivalist or anything. I knew how to pack light but smart. Had my canvas tent, stove, water filter, and a bare canister with just enough food to last. I didn't bring anything flashy. No GPS, just a physical map and a compass I'd used 100 times before. That trail had enough offshoots to explore, but still looped back to the main path eventually, so I wasn't worried about getting turned around. I set up camp maybe 5 miles in. Found this flat little spot near a bend in the river. Nothing developed, just packed dirt, a little grass, a ring of trees on 3 sides, and that wide open curve of water. The kind of place that felt tucked away, but still open enough that I wouldn't feel boxed in. I pitched the tent right near the edge of the trees and stacked the rest of my gear where the ground wasn't too soft. It was warm in the day, cold at night, just how I liked it. The first 2 days were exactly what I needed. I spent most of the time sitting by the water, riding, fishing, watching the sky roll by. Every now and then I'd hear birds or maybe a rabbit hopping past, but nothing bigger. No other campers, no voices, the kind of quiet that sinks in deep enough to feel like a reset. I started to think I might stay longer than 5 days. Then on the 3rd morning I stepped out of the tent and saw it. A small stack of rocks, just 3 stones, flat and gray, balanced carefully on each other, like someone had taken their time with it. Maybe 8 inches tall, just a foot from the tent's edge. I hadn't seen it the night before. I would have noticed. It was right by where I walked to get water. It was weird, sure, but I told myself it had to be some animal messing around. Or maybe something fell just right, which I knew was a stretch. Still, I didn't want to spook myself over nothing. I knocked the stack over with my boot. Didn't think about it again, and went about my day. Fished, cooked, wrote in the journal. The usual. That night I woke up at around 3. Not to a noise. Just woke up. Like my brain flipped a switch for no reason. I didn't move at first. Just lay there trying to figure out what had stirred me. Everything sounded normal. A breeze in the trees. The tent canvas giving a little ripple now and then. But something in my gut felt tense. I sat up slowly and looked through the mesh flap of the tent. And there it was again. Another stack of stones. Same size, same position. But this time the bottom stone was darker, with a reddish tint, and shaped almost like a wedge. I got up, grabbed my flashlight, and circled the tent. Nothing. No tracks. No broken branches. No rustling. Just that stack sitting there like it had been waiting for me to find it. I chipped the rocks one by one, and tossed them into the river. Watched them disappear into the current. I was more annoyed than anything. It felt like a prank, but there was no one out there with me. The next morning, I decided to move camp. I didn't feel in danger exactly, but the feeling from the night before hadn't really left. I found another spot, maybe half a mile upstream. More open, less cover, with a better view of both sides of the river. It made me feel like I had more breathing room. That night, just after the sun dipped low, I noticed someone across the river. At first, I wasn't even sure what I was looking at. A figure tall, standing still between 2 trees, half shadowed. Too far to see clearly, but definitely human-shaped. Not moving, just watching. I called out, a casual, "Hey there," like I might with any other hiker. No answer. I flicked on my flashlight and aimed it across the water. The figure was gone. There was no sound, no splash, no movement through the brush. Just empty space where they'd been standing. I waited, held my breath, scanned the trees for a while. Nothing. I stayed zipped in my tent the rest of the night. Kept the light off. Just listened. In the morning, I crossed the river to check. The ground was soft over there, perfect for catching footprints. But there weren't any. No depressions, no tracks, not even broken twigs. It was like no one had ever stood there at all. By that afternoon, clouds had started thickening, and something in my chest started getting tight. I don't know if it was instinct or panic, but I started packing fast. I decided I'd head out that night. I could make it to the trailhead by dusk if I kept pace, but I only made it about 3 miles before I stopped. Something wasn't right. My legs were heavier than they should have been. Not just tired, slow, uncoordinated. Like I'd hiked twice the distance already, my breathing felt off, shallow. And then ahead on the trail, things started to look wrong. The trees were angled weird. The slope was too sharp. It didn't feel like the path I'd taken in. I froze. After a while, I turned around and went back to my original site. I felt stupid doing it, but I told myself I'd try again in the morning. Maybe I just needed rest. I didn't sleep at all. Somewhere around midnight I heard footsteps. They weren't rushed, just soft, deliberate steps. A slow movement, maybe 5 or 6 feet from the tent. Then silence. Then 3 knocks clear. Steady like someone tapping on the ground, or maybe the cooler or some piece of gear. Not branches falling, not an animal scratching. Knocks. I stayed perfectly still. Didn't breathe, didn't reach for the flashlight. The fire had burned down to nothing, and I wasn't about to light myself up like a target. The steps circled once, then nothing. At first light, I opened the tent. The stones were back. Stacked again. Taller this time. 5 rocks. The top one smooth and round like it had been shaped, balanced right where I'd thrown them the first time. And next to the stack, pressed clearly into the dirt beside one of my boot prints, was a single bare footprint. It was longer than mine. Wider too. No shoe. No tread. Just a flat imprint. Heel arched toes. I didn't take time to pack. I grabbed what I could carry, slung my pack over one shoulder, and started walking. Didn't care how loud I was or how clumsy I moved. I just wanted out. By the time I got to the trailhead, it was early afternoon. My shin was bleeding from a gash I hadn't even felt happen, and my shoulder ached like I'd been hit with a bat. There was one other car in the lot, some older couple unloading gear. I didn't even look at them, just got in my car and left. Back in town, I booked a motel for 2 nights. I laid everything out on the bed. Milo and I had gone way out, something like 6 miles off the Denali highway. We'd both done cold weather trips before, and we took it seriously. Milo even brought extra fuel tablets he'd been testing at home. This wasn't our first trip like this, but it was the first time we'd gone this far west, and something about that detail sticks with me now. The day itself was fine, uneventful in the best way. We hiked in, following a rough compass line between 2 minor ridge lines, and found a low pocket that looked good for camp. Just enough shelter to block wind, not so low it would pool moisture. We built a fire ring with flat stones, boiled water, and set out our freeze-dried meals while the sun dropped like a rock behind the peaks. Fast and sharp the way it does up there. You don't get long sunsets. Dinner was the usual bland stew, and a flask passed between us while we sat close to the fire. Swapping stories we'd already told each other 10 times. Talked about gear, trail rumors. Some guy Milo knew who swore he saw a moose carcass standing upright last winter. That kind of thing. Nothing stood out. It just felt like another night outdoors. Around 10, I ducked into my tent and zipped myself into the bag. Milo stayed out by the fire, as he always did. He liked to keep it going, even when the heat wasn't really necessary. Said the light helped him think. Our tents were maybe 15 feet apart, both facing north, with just enough space between to keep to ourselves. I woke up sometime later. Still pitch dark, no sound but wind. I didn't have a watch, but something was off. You know that odd awareness when your eyes are closed, but you can feel light somewhere near you? That's what did it. I blinked, sat up slowly, and unzipped the tent flap just a couple of inches. The fire had burned down to soft red embers, barely alive. But there was a glow off to the left, higher up, near the ridge line. It wasn't the moon. This had a dull orange tone, sort of like a dying lantern, or one of those older headlamps set on low battery. It wasn't moving, just still like it was floating in place. My first thought was that Milo had wandered up there for some reason. Maybe to pee. Maybe he'd heard something. Maybe just to clear his head. Wouldn't have been weird. I zipped the tent closed again and laid back down, but I didn't sleep. I watched that glow through the fabric of the tent for at least 15 minutes. It didn't shift, didn't pulse or waver, just sat there steady. No footsteps, no voice calling back. Eventually I gave in to the tension. I pulled my boots on inside the tent. Something I never do. Unzipped the flap all the way, and stepped out with my flashlight. The air hit me sharp, colder than before. I glanced at Milo's tent first, still zipped. No light, no movement. I stood for a second, just taking in the ridge. The glow was still there, but lower now. Not like it had walked down, just lower to the ground somehow, maybe half as high as before. I couldn't see a body or figure, just the shape of the light. I crouched by Milo's tent and tapped aside. No answer. Unzipped the corner, leaned in. He was out cold, earplugs in, sleeping bag zipped tight around his chin. Completely unaware. I backed out, stood up, and turned to the ridge again. The glow was gone. Just like that. I scanned with my flashlight. The beam scattered off trees and didn't catch anything reflective. No shine. No shadow. Just the whisper of branches above me, dead pine needles shifting in the breeze. Back in my tent, I didn't even try to sleep again. Just lay there fully dressed, flashlight in one hand, boots still on. Every creak of fabric made me flinch. I kept telling myself it could have been a reflection from the fire, maybe a trick of the angle, something ordinary. By the time the sun came up, I'd almost convinced myself. Milo unzipped his tent around 7. Looking like he'd slept through a hotel stay. Started boiling water with this calm morning focus, like nothing had happened. I waited until the second mug of coffee before asking, "Did you go up the ridge last night?" He shook his head, like he was trying to remember. "No, crashed hard around midnight. Didn't wake up at all." We didn't talk about it after that, not directly. We packed up around noon and moved west to our second site. This one may be 2 miles further, near a flat, frozen creek. It was a wide clearing, more exposed, less tree cover. Probably less comfortable, but Milo said it'd make for good stargazing. We didn't talk much while setting up. It wasn't tension exactly, but something was off. That quiet you get when both people are deliberately not bringing something up. That twitchy silence where even small talk feels heavy. That night, he went to bed first. I stayed by the fire. Kept checking the map, watching the fire burn down. I turned my headlamp off just before midnight. Let my eyes adjust. The stars were out, really bright, no wind. Just still air, like everything had pressed pause. Then just one sound. Crunch. Snow. A deep, slow compression. Like someone stepping on a fresh patch. It came from maybe 30 feet away. Past a strip of dense brush. I froze. No second step, no movement. Just that one sound. I turned the lamp on, got to my feet slowly, and swept the beam in the direction of the noise. Nothing. No shape, no shift. Just white and black and brush. "Hey," I called out. Firm, loud enough to carry, but not shouting. "You all right?" Nothing. I stood there another few minutes. The fire popped once. Still nothing from the trees. I took a few steps out toward the edge. Then I saw it, just outside the fire's reach, half buried in untouched snow. A print. Bare. A human foot. Long toes splayed slightly. Heel angled inward, like whoever it was had pivoted slightly. No sock. No shoe. And no other prints. No leading steps. No exit trail. Just that one clear imprint. I stepped back. Heart going fast now, breath sharp in my chest. Walked backwards to Milo's tent, turned and shook him awake. He sat up groggy, holding a knife instead of a flashlight. I pointed. "There's something you need to see." We walked back together. He looked at the print, crouched, didn't touch it, just stared, then stood and looked at the tree scanning slowly. After a long pause, he said, "Let's break it down now." That was it. No argument. No second thoughts. We packed up in about 10 minutes. Not saying much. Rolled everything tight. Didn't even heat water. Just shouldered our packs and started hiking. East skipped the next leg of the trip entirely and never, ever looked back. I decided to take a solo camping trip out near the southern edge of the Canlow Ridge early September, right before the temperatures really start to nosedive. I needed a break from everything. I hiked in from Croft Pass. Took about half a day with a full pack, but it was a straightforward trail. Nothing technical. Just me, my canvas tent, 3 days worth of freeze-dried meals, and my dad's old field journal. He used to hike out here alone in the late 70s. Back when that was less of a statement and more of a default. No GPS, just topo maps and compass bearings. His journal had a bunch of sketches and notes, little personal landmarks, odd trees, strange rocks. I followed one of the routes he'd drawn by hand. There was something grounding about it. The spot I picked was nearly perfect. A flat stretch right near a glacial stream, open enough that I could see movement coming from a ways off, but still tucked against a rise in the ridge for some wind protection. I pitched the tent facing east, filtered a few liters of water, and boiled some coffee that tasted like burnt pennies, but still felt like a luxury out there. The first night was normal, cold but manageable. I kept the little stove running in the vestibule until I dozed off. I heard some distant wind, maybe a fox somewhere across the water, but nothing unusual. I've done enough backcountry camping to know what normal feels like, and that was it. Just nature doing its thing, and me along for the ride. Second day, I decided to hike a few miles deeper along the ridge. I wanted to find this ravine my dad had sketched a few times in the back of the journal. He labeled it with a strange symbol. 3 small slashes and a dot. No idea what it meant. The terrain got rough pretty quickly. I dropped elevation fast into a dry gulch, then scrambled up the other side using exposed tree roots as handholds. About 3 miles out I found it, a narrow gash in the earth, just like in the drawing. Sheer sides, probably 15 feet down to the dry creek bed. There were old driftwood branches twisted up along the bottom like they'd been thrown there years ago. It didn't look like anyone had been near it in a long time. I sat down on a rock ledge and pulled out the journal. One of the nearby entries caught my eye. It said, "Left the marks again. Can't remember doing it." That was all. No build-up, no explanation. Just that one line, sitting there by itself like it meant something to someone. I read it a few times. I don't know why, but it got under my skin a little. That night, I couldn't quite settle. I wasn't scared exactly. It was more like my brain couldn't fully relax. There was a stillness to the air that hadn't been there the night before. No wind, no bugs, no animal calls. Just a kind of pressure, like something holding its breath. I sat by the fire later than usual. Let the heat soak in and tried not to overthink the journal. But around midnight, I noticed something at the far edge of the firelight. Prints. Boo prints. I stood up fast, nearly kicked over the camp chair. The prints weren't mine. They were wider at the toe, longer stride, deep enough to hold their shape, but not fresh enough to be wet. They started maybe 10 feet from the tent and led away into the trees. I followed them for a bit, maybe 20 yards, until they disappeared behind a big flat boulder. After that, the ground turned rocky. No dirt, no impressions. Just gone. I went back to the fire and sat there staring at the dark until the coals went dim. Every time a branch cracked in the distance, I felt my chest tighten. I didn't go back into the tent until the sky was starting to pale. Next morning, I did a slow loop around camp, checked for tracks, disturbances, broken branches, anything. But everything looked exactly the same. Same prints, no new ones. Nothing moved, nothing added, and still that silence. I kept thinking maybe it was just an old trail. Could have been a trapper, maybe a surveyor. It didn't explain the freshness of the prints, but I was clinging to anything reasonable. Later that afternoon, I tried reading more of the journal. I needed something to help me make sense of the feeling I couldn't shake. I flipped toward the back pages I hadn't read yet. The handwriting shifted. Same pen, but different style. Slanted harder. Smaller letters, tighter lines. These entries weren't dated. One page in particular stopped me. Just 4 words, centered at the top. 3rd night is the test. That line sat in my head like a weight. I read it at least a dozen times. No context. Nothing around it. Just that sentence. I didn't cook dinner that night. Appetite wasn't really a thing by then. I ate a granola bar, kept my boots on, and built the fire up higher. The idea of that 3rd night being any kind of test didn't sit well, even if I didn't know what it meant. I fell asleep at some point. I must have, but I woke up in the kind of dark that doesn't make sense. I held up my hand and couldn't see it. No outline, no motion, just black, like ink poured across everything. And then I heard it. Not footsteps, not crunching leaves or twigs. Just movement, shifting, like someone standing just outside the tent, adjusting their weight. That subtle little sound when someone's knees unlock. Or they step quietly in place. I didn't breathe, just lay there, eyes wide open into nothing, and listened. For a second I thought, hoped it was a moose. Maybe one had wandered into camp, but it didn't sound right. Too close, too measured. Then I heard the breathing, slow, controlled, like someone deliberately keeping it quiet. But it was close, just outside the tent wall. My hand slid toward the knife beside my sleeping bag. Took forever to get there. My fingers were cold, slick with sweat. I didn't even squeeze the handle, just held it. And then came the zipper. Not the tent door, not mine. It came from off to the left, maybe 6 feet away. A smooth, short zip, like someone opening a backpack. One problem, there was no other pack. I kept all my gear inside the tent. The sound stopped. No footsteps. No talking. No wrestling. Just that one zip, and then silence again. I didn't move, didn't speak. Just lay there, knife in hand, heart pounding against my ribs so loud I was sure it could be heard outside. Eventually, somehow, I must have blacked out. Maybe from exhaustion. Maybe from fear. I honestly don't know. When I opened my eyes again, it was daylight. The walls of the tent glowed with soft gray light. I sat up slowly, unzipped the door and stepped outside. Everything looked untouched. The fire was dead. No signs of movement. Nothing disturbed. Except one thing. Next to the fire pit, someone had placed the journal, open to that same page, third night as the test. But this time, under it, in different handwriting, shakier, more rushed. Someone had added 2 more words. You stayed. That was it. No explanation. Just a quiet, deliberate acknowledgement. I didn't pack anything. I didn't check the trees again. I picked up the knife in the journal, slung them over my shoulder, and started walking. Left the tent. Left the food. Left the gear. Didn't even bother to fold the ground tarp. I hiked the full 3 miles back to the main trail without stopping. No water. No breaks. My legs were jelly by the time I reached the roadside pull-off where I'd left the car. I sat behind the wheel for a full hour before I could turn the key. That was 5 years ago. I haven't told anyone about it until now. That year, my sister got me round-trip ticket to Anchorage as a birthday gift. She framed it like a generous surprise. But I knew what it really was, her polite way of saying, "You need to get the hell out of here for a bit." She wasn't wrong. The divorce had knocked the wind out of me. Angela's cabin was cozy, the kind of place with quilts on the walls and mugs that didn't match. She and her husband lived in the main house down the hill. And when they found out I was planning to camp for a night or 2, they let me borrow gear, snowshoes, a thermal sleeping bag, even a lightweight axe. I appreciated it. I hadn't done a solo camp in years, and definitely not in winter conditions. For 6 days, everything went pretty much the way I'd imagined. Quiet hikes, frozen waterfalls, some wildlife at a distance, mostly moose and foxes. My photos were decent too. There was one shot of a raven perched on a rusted sign that I was especially proud of. I felt like I was finally starting to reset. On my last night, I got it into my head that I should try something different, something more isolated. I wasn't trying to be dramatic. I just wanted to say I'd done it. Slept alone in the woods in Alaska. No cell service, no walls, just me and the trees. I picked a spot about 45 minutes from the road, near a frozen creek I'd seen on an earlier hike. The trail wasn't official, but it was marked by old orange tags stapled to tree trunks, probably from hunters or past hikers. I left around mid-afternoon, snowshoes on and backpack stuffed with the essentials, tent, flashlight, food, the works. I set up just before sunset, built a small fire with dry wood I'd packed in, heated up a beef stew pouch meal that tasted exactly like boiled cardboard, and finished it off with a candy bar I found at the bottom of my bag. After that, I zipped into my sleeping bag and let a podcast drone in my ears while I watched my breath float toward the tent roof. It was honestly kind of perfect. The weird stuff didn't start with a bang. It was small. So small I almost ignored it. I'd stepped outside to pee, and when I turned back, I noticed my backpack wasn't where I'd left it. It had been right next to the tent entrance, neatly placed. Now it was off to the side, near a tree maybe 5 or 6 feet away. I stood there for a second, confused, trying to remember if I'd moved it. Maybe I nudged it without realizing. It didn't seem like something worth worrying about. I dragged it back, zipped it shut, and went back inside. That's when my phone died. Earlier, it had been working fine. Battery at 70%, no issues. Now it wouldn't turn on at all. Screen black, no response. I tried holding the buttons. Even tried warming it up inside my coat. Nothing. I figured it was the cold. It does weird things to batteries, but it still bugged me. I was settling back into the sleeping bag when I heard it. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Slow footsteps on snow. Not fast, not panicked, just deliberate. I froze. My first thought was animal. Maybe a moose or a stray dog. Something sniffing around the camp. But the footsteps stopped. Right next to the tent. No breathing, no movement, just silence. I waited, not even daring to adjust my weight. 10 seconds passed. Then 20. I whispered hello, because apparently my survival instinct is not that sharp, and instantly regretted it. Nothing. I reached for the flashlight, flicked it on, and aimed it toward the tent wall. A shadow moved, not like branches shifting in the wind. It moved away, quick and smooth, like someone had been standing there, right there, and backed up as soon as the light hit. I was out of the tent in seconds. No shoes, no plan. I spun the light in a frantic circle, trying to catch movement, sound, anything, but there was nobody. I walked a slow circle around the tent, heart thudding. There was a single set of footprints leading straight toward my camp. Not mine. The stride was longer. I followed them for maybe 15 feet until they stopped behind a tree. Just stopped. No turn, no continuation. Just one set of prints, and then nothing. The snow beyond them was untouched. That didn't make sense. Even if they doubled back, I'd see it. But there was nothing. Clean snow. Like whoever made those prints just stepped off the planet. I didn't go back to sleep. I zipped myself in, boots on this time, flashlight in hand, and waited. Every so often I'd click it on and scan the tent. No sound, no movement, just silence. Around 4 in the morning I noticed something again. Light, flickering light, not firelight brighter. A flashlight moving through the trees, maybe 100 yards out. It wasn't bouncing around like someone searching. It moved slowly, steadily, coming closer. I didn't think. I grabbed what I could, shoved it under my coat, and took off. No trail, no markers. Just aimed myself in the general direction of the road. Snow was up to my shins. Every few steps I stumbled, gasping, trying to move faster. I glanced left once and saw another light. Closer, following me, but staying at the same pace. Then a third one appeared, off to the right, farther out like it was cutting me off. None of them said a word. I don't know how long I ran. Could have been 10 minutes, could have been 40. The woods were thick and disorienting. I didn't see the road until I was practically on top of it. When I hit pavement, I dropped to my knees, hands scraped and numb, and just started waving at the empty road like a maniac. I must have looked completely out of it. Eventually, an old truck pulled up. A guy in his 50s looked like a mill worker, or maybe a long-haul driver. He cracked the window first, real cautious. Then let me in when he saw I wasn't holding anything. Just handed me a wool blanket, and kept driving like this. Wasn't the weirdest thing he'd seen that month. I told him someone tried to rob me. He nodded and didn't press. Back in Braxton Ridge, I gave a statement to the sheriff. They were polite, but I could tell they weren't exactly gearing up for a manhunt. Still, they sent someone out the next day to find the campsite. They came back with a few things. The tent had been slashed open. One long vertical cut, like from a knife. Everything else was gone. Gear, food, even the axe. Except for one thing. They found my phone. It had been placed upright in the snow, screen facing out, just standing there, like someone wanted me to notice it. When I turned it on, it worked perfectly. Full battery. No issues. But the photo folder? Empty. Every picture I'd taken gone. Not deleted. Wiped. No data. Not even in the recently deleted folder. Just a phone with no proof I'd ever been there. I flew home the next day. I didn't argue when my sister said I seemed different. I didn't tell her what happened. Not really. I just said I lost my phone and had to cut the trip short. But I still think about it all the time. Because whoever or whatever was out there didn't want to hurt me. They wanted me to leave, and they made sure there was nothing left behind.